Hey, my name is Sunny Shaw, and for today's case presentation is on the character Charlie from the film The Perks of Being a Wallflower. The setting is based upon a suburban Pittsburgh neighborhood in the early 1990s. As Charlie is now an incoming freshman trying to fit into his new environment, he is seen to be introverted or socially distant before socially distant was even cool. He is what is referred to as a wallflower, shy, anxious, and unpopular. He remains at the sides because that's where he thinks he belongs or feels comfortable. Now, in the film, we follow Charlie's life in his freshman year as he makes new friends, and the overall tone of this film is based upon that nostalgic feeling of having memories that everyone seems to have and express. But it is also exploratory as we, the audience, view from the perspective of Charlie as he goes through his new experience of just hanging out with friends, as before he was just a sheltered kid not having much of a social life. From what I have watched, Charlie clearly suffers from social anxiety disorder, and being in the early 1990s, the diagnosis would seem as just mentally ill, as during that time, treatment towards mental illness and social anxiety overall wasn't as prepared or understanding as it is today. But now, to this day, in modern society, most cultures actually acknowledge the impacts of mental illness and such the like of social anxiety disorder, where many people now have the understanding and education of mental illness to help properly treat it. But with general knowledge of social anxiety and mental illness comes stigma, which generally people would assume that social anxiety is not a real thing, and rather just a weakness and it being all in your head. Which, for the people who do suffer, won't look towards professional help and instead just either muddle or try and work through it. What Charlie displays is both PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and borderline personality disorder, or BPD. As a recurring scene of the film is Charlie having flashbacks of his aunt Helen, who he later found out has sexually abused him in the past, shedding light towards his actions of him suffering from PTSD and BPD, which is a result of childhood abuse and his subsequent attachment towards his friends Patrick and Sam being one of the biggest problems that people with BPD suffer from, as he also shows signs of mood swings, of being overly depressed and sad in one scene, and then jumping all the way 180 to being emotionally filled with anger, causing him to lash out, such as that one scene in the cafeteria fight. And even though both PTSD and BPD are common traits of social anxiety disorder, I think that actual social anxiety is his weakest, as he's very bold to interact and start a conversation with Patrick in the very beginning of the film. And we see his progression of becoming more confident towards interacting with other people as he progresses throughout the film. Treatment towards social anxiety, PTSD, and PPD would best be through the uses of counseling, self-care, and varying degrees of medication. Why this treatment is appropriate for social anxiety is that it helps the patient face and acknowledge the fear and figure out how to correctly work through and treat the problems in a safe environment. Confessing and explaining towards a therapist is as healthy as getting in proper diet and exercise, as the use of medication towards suppressing anxiety could help in many situations. Although a general concern is that with medications could be taken as addictive, leading towards a darker path of addiction towards antidepressants, as that may be an ethical concern. But what may stop Charlie from receiving proper treatment may be through societal view, as he may start thinking that the people in high school will see him as a freak who goes to a mental hospital where all the other crazy people go in, which may actually stop him from wanting to continue proper treatment. Charlie, who suffers from social anxiety, does accurately portray the disorder in the film. As many cases of his awkwardness towards interacting with other people, him having flashbacks of his abusive aunt, and his overall anxiety that he exudes in the film whenever he is about to do something are all accurate depiction of someone who experiences social anxiety. Generally in film, it seems to exaggerate mental illness to highlight that the character does have a form of mental illness, in which the audience may take that upon as the mental illness, as that exaggeration the film has put on, which is totally not the case as shown in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Mental illness and social anxiety can rather be undertone or inconspicuous and low-key and not present at all, but yet these people will still be going through so much underneath. And with that, I conclude this case presentation. Thank you.